My wife and I recently moved and realized that we had a bunch of stuff that we didn't want cluttering up our house anymore. Fortunately, we have a large storage area over the shop. Unfortunately, getting all that stuff up a small pull-down attic ladder was not a viable option. The idea of an electric cable hoist was an obvious choice. But then what? Hook everything into a cargo net? That would be really cumbersome and time-consuming and awkward, and probably dangerous with all the odd shapes and boxes coming apart, and had to come up with some other idea. For the hoist, I found the cheapest, lightest duty 28-foot aluminum extension ladder I could find. The main rail structure is the primary 14-foot section. The little platform sliding section that goes up and down is a 52-inch section of the sliding portion of that 28-foot ladder. The hoist motor is one of the least expensive, lightest duty units that I could find. The single line lift capacity is 220 pounds, and the motor rating is 440 watts. Above is a 4-foot piece of 1 5/8 unistrut conduit strut channel that's attached with structural screws to blocking, which is attached to the rafters. And the motor is in the strut channel hanging by trolley wheels. I cut a 52-inch piece out of the part of the ladder that would extend up the front section of the ladder. These are 2-inch by, I believe they're 2-inch by 5/8 conveyor wheels. These are, like a box conveyor they'd be unloading a truck with. These are ball bearing. You see the ball bearings in there. So it's a 2-inch by 5/8 inch conveyor wheel. It's a 1/4-inch diameter hole in the middle here. You can see that that center bushing stands out. It's a little bit wider than the wheel, which works out perfect. Anyway, I doubled those up here. So I took a 1/4-inch stainless bolt, went through the middle here, and I took a large stainless fender washer on the inside here and doubled up fender washers on the back side here, and that's a nylock nut on the back side. Put the big fender washers on there to add a little bit of rigidity to that so it wouldn't flex. Without those fender washers, you'd get too much flex in that aluminum I-beam there, but there's none with it that way. So I've got a set on the bottom on both sides. Of course, with the weight here, your weight is going to be pressing in on the bottom, and it's going to want to be pulling out on the top. So on the top, I did the same thing, doubled up the wheels here. Same setup, same bolt and everything as the bottom. But what I did on the back side here is I got some of this, this is some 1/4-inch Teflon, PTFE. And I cut little strips of it. And then I took a Brad style drill bit. That's what I call them. Anyway, I took a Brad style drill bit and countersunk a hole so that on the top up here, I could on the back side where it rides against this, I riveted 2 strips of this Teflon. So it's not on this upper part where it's pulling out, instead of being aluminum on aluminum wearing on the back side here, it's aluminum on Teflon. You can see I just used these are Simpson strong tie L bracket. I believe they're a 12 gauge. Put one on the bottom here, one on the top, and trying to use the stuff that I have on hand here to keep it inexpensive. I just used this 1/2-inch plywood that I had. I sandwiched it together with some epoxy. This is about a 4-inch stainless screw, and I pre-drilled the hole in the middle of the sandwich here. You know, after this was set up, I pre-drilled the hole, filled the hole with epoxy so that that screw shouldn't back out. And it's pinned down here by this 1/4-inch bolt that holds the wheels on. So that's not going anywhere. That's locked on there. Same thing over here. Of course, on the bottom here, when you let this thing down, you don't want it just to hit on the concrete, you know, and jarred. You know, if you're, let's say I'm bringing down some glassware or something in a box, I don't want it to come down and hit and jar. I used a 5/16 stainless steel bolt, 6 inches, 5 inches long, 5 inches by 5/16, and put a compression spring. You can see the compression spring on there with the fender washers. That's so that whenever it gets to the bottom, gets down to the ground down here and hits, you've got a little bit of cushion when it gets down here. I also put brass bushings in here, 1/2-inch outside diameter brass bushings. I scuffed them up on the outside with the edge of a file and smeared epoxy inside the hole. And there's actually 2 bushings. There's one tapped down from the top, one tapped up from the bottom here. So this is actually turned upside down. You can see the flat section is facing down here. So this would have been the very top of the slide part of the ladder. The reason I turned this upside down, the reason I wanted the flat on the bottom here, you can see that this is a nice, oh God, what is this? Probably 10 gauge. I want to say that's 10 gauge angle iron. And a good solid piece here. And I wanted this flat against the bottom. I wanted the support across here, across this rung from side to side. Probably that's a 3/8 inch stainless eye screw on there. And again, the stainless fender washers on here. You can see over here, I stuck a rivet in here. And then of course this side, this is the limit. This is for the limit switch here. This is so I can adjust the upper limit on it. I can run this up and down, and you'll see up above where it hits the limit switch on the motor, so that you don't have to be careful. You can just run it up until it hits the limit switch and it automatically stops. But this way too, with having it pinned over here with a rivet and then pinned by the shaft of this limit switch, This piece of angle iron is locked in here. It's not going to be able to rotate and go anywhere. And I can adjust this then up and down so that when it hits the limit switch up above, the platform is right where I want it to be, in conjunction with the floor in the loft. Pretty simple what I did here. You can see the two L brackets. Now the ladder is not resting on those. The ladder is resting on the floor down below. The L brackets are there to keep the unit locked in so it can't move out. And then the top, I've got a little chunk of mahogany hardwood piece of railing, kind of contoured there. That piece of mahogany has got the top held captive up there. So between the L brackets and this top up here, it can't go anywhere. It's locked in. And then there's about 3 inches clearance above the top of the ladder there. You can see I cut it off at an angle there to kind of match the roof pitch a little bit. Anyway, there's about 3 inches clearance on each side. So I can just lift the whole assembly up, come out free of the two L brackets there, and the whole assembly slips down and out.